I'm Q Myers. The Raiders ran 30 plays, not in the first quarter, not in the first half, in the entire game. We'll talk about that plus more.
Raider Nation, I'm the voice of reason, Professor Kennedy. I'm going to try to talk you off of that big ledge. I don't want you to jump just yet, but there are some reasons of concern. We'll talk about it next.
I'm Amber Theo Harris. Ashton Jeanty ran the ball one time in the first 10 plays. It was scripted that way. That might be a problem. It's the Raider Squad Show.
Raider Nation, it's time. This is the Raiders Squad. Everything Las Vegas Raiders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Death Star in the desert. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Commitment to excellence starts here. The Raiders Squad Show starts now.
Welcome in, Raider Nation, to the Raider Squad Show. Chantel Chand is not with us today. She is behind the scenes making sure it do what it do, but it's a bye week, so we gave her a little bit of time off. Of course, Professor Kennedy is alongside with us, and we bring in our good friend Amber Theo Harris, SiriusXM NFL, the Silver and Black Show today as well. And we're springing everything on Amber this morning. So, Amber, we appreciate you rocking with us today on the Raider Squad Show.
We're going to roll with it. That's how we do, Q. That's how we do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we deep dive into it, I do want to let everyone know that today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So, Amber, Lincoln, obviously a lot to get to. Week 7 is come and go for the Silver and Black, and they took a 31-0 beatdown by the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. It was bad. It was embarrassing. There's a lot of different words I could use for it, but this is a family-friendly show, so I choose not to do that. But, Amber, we'll start off with you. We'll let you go ahead and get your lead off on, or you get your Ricky Henderson on since, it's almost World Series time.
That's right.
What and everything went wrong, but how are you just – when you watch that game and the way it unfolded, you mentioned in the open about the scripted plays, and it looked and felt very unscripted.
I think that's the biggest problem, Q, right now. When in the bye week, it is a time of self-examination, self-scouting, but I think the coaches need to do that more than anybody else right now. Clearly, the players had an uninspired effort, and the coaches can't go out there and play for them. But in my opinion, the coaches did not put their players in a position to win that game. And it started off with the very first drive of the game. I'm going to ask you this, because I know this is back and forth. If I told you, you don't have Brock Bowers, you're the offensive coordinator, you and Lincoln are the offensive coordinators. And I go, you know what, guys, we don't have Brock Bowers and we don't have Jacoby Myers today. And we don't have our left tackle, Colton Miller. What do you think our game plan should be?
Feed two.
Give me okay. Right? Number 2. So right. I would give it to him 530,000 times in the first, at least the script. You can't control what happens sometimes after that first drive. But one thing you can control is how well you plan, what your game plan is. And in that first drive, that should be your best effort based on the opponent and the situation that you have been put in with your injuries. And the fact that they gave the ball to Ashton Jeanty on the first play and then 10 plays in that drive, we did not see Ashton Jeanty again. That is what is bothering me the most. That, to me, shows a lack of understanding of what your identity needs to be, especially in tough times when you have an injury, all these injuries to your offense.
Yeah, no, that's a great point that you bring up. And Ashton Jeanty only got, 6 total touches in the game, which clearly is not enough. Again, the Raiders ran 30 plays as a whole team in a whole game, which is ridiculous. But Lincoln, how do you start to unpack this? You said you're the voice of reason. Give us some reason, please.
Here's the thing. Look, I understand the frustration, and I'm disappointed in the way the Raiders obviously played yesterday. But I'm also reminded of a game, and I'll take a little bit back before you guys' time because you're all young. 1997, we went to Kansas City, and under Joe Bugle, we got our asses kicked 30-0. All right. And that night was an absolute disaster because going into that game, Joe Bugle had told, may he rest in heaven, had told us all, we are going to run the football. We're not going to do, we had Jeff George, we're not going to do 7-step drops. We're not going to drop back there because we knew they had, guys like Derek Thomas on the other end and, Neil Smith. They had a good defense and they could rush your quarterback. And we got utterly destroyed, absolutely destroyed. Everything fell off course. I say that to say this, much to Amber's point, this is the time of, reflecting and looking back. You've got to implode and change everything because your system offensively doesn't work. What you came into the season thinking you were going to do work, it's not going to work. You have to change it. And dealing with the personnel that you have to deal with, here's something that I want to say. Simplify this offense to it is almost 2 + 2 = 4. And you can see it. We're going to run the ball left. We're going to run the ball right. I don't care if we don't get a first down, but we have to establish the fact that we have some sort of identity. Going in after 6 games, 7 games, we don't have an identity. I can't tell you what this offense is about. I can't tell you what they do. They don't do anything well. It's absolutely embarrassing to only have 30 plays a game. Now, I know that's not always on the offense's fault. Defense had to find a way to get off the field. The Chiefs had 3 long drives in the first half that just killed the clock, and the defense couldn't seem to get ahead. They were always behind them. So much to your point and what you guys saw yesterday, the fact is that they have to stay ahead of the chains. For every positive play the Raiders seemed to have on offense, there was some sort of negative, whether it was a penalty, whether it was a missed block, a miscue. They cannot start they cannot start a series 2nd and 12, 2nd down and 10. They can't do that. They're not that efficient. They have to stay ahead of the chains, and they're not doing that. So with this time off, that everyone is under focus. I'm not calling for a coaching change. I'm not saying fire everybody because they've done enough of that crap. They've got to find a way to keep pieces in place. This team has no solidity, no solid backbone right now, because when you talk about guys going down, Max Crosby didn't play in the second half. We already talked about Colton Miller. They've got injuries across the board to valuable people. And Q, we talked about this coming into the season. My biggest concern, depth.
Yeah.
Depth at key positions. How are you going to, you don't have the manpower to deal with that. So going forward, they need to change everything. But right now, implode that offensive system because it's not working.
No, it's not. And you saw guys like Jackson Powers-Johnson getting overpowered, by Chris Jones. Chris Jones absolutely wrecked the game. There was really no solution for this team. And to be honest, guys, to see them lose 5 games out of the first 7, okay, that's one thing. But to see them get blown out the way they have in 3 games now, right? Washington, Indianapolis, and now this game against Kansas City. That's the least I expected to see from a Pete Carroll-led team. I didn't expect to see them get blown out. I thought that we were going to see them compete. I thought we were going to see them be in all these games, scratch, claw, fight till the end, and make it, at least a fun game and a fun watch. I had people hitting me up talking about, well, I started doing laundry at halftime because this game was already, in the bag. It was already a wash, and it was. When Kansas City goes on a 94-yard drive, an 86-yard drive, and a 92-yard drive, like those in those kind of positions, like AJ Cole was the hero.
Yeah.
Right? There was one silver lining. They got the kicking game right.
Right. But he put them in great position, right? He pinned them back deep. And you would think that normally that's going to be advantage defense because they're backed up in the shadows of their own end zone. Instead, they just went on 9, 11, 17 play drives that took 8, 9 minutes off the clock and just easily got into the end zone. Like, to me, that was one of the biggest issues as well. Like, we talk about the offense, but to Lincoln's point, the defense not being able to get off the field in certain situations, Amber, that was a struggle as well.
That was a struggle as well. And that's, I think, was what was really disappointing was we felt like the defense was maybe a unit on the rise. We were cautious after the Titans game because clearly the Titans are not a good team. So if you're able to sack Cam Ward 6 times, that's not the same as sacking Patrick Mahomes 6 times, right? So we didn't expect it to be that type of performance, but I did think that we were in a position, the way that Devin White had played in that game, the linebacking core coming along with an offensive line that had been, a defensive line that had been playing very strong. I really felt like it was on the rise. I knew that this was going to be a big test.
Right.
I didn't think they would win this game, but I thought that they would put up more of a fight than they did. And I think that's why everybody is kind of deflated this morning. Yeah. Because now you're at a crossroads. You and I talked about this, Q. You're at a crossroads. The trade deadline's coming up.
Yep.
And Pete Carroll and John Spytek, their job is to turn this organization around. Yes, their job is to win now. Every coach needs to win now because in the NFL, you don't have a very long leash. But I don't think, I'm with Lincoln, we are not firing anybody. Like, no coaches need to be on the hot seat. We have had enough turnover. We can't do this.
That's half the problem.
That's half the problem. You have got to give people a chance, especially a guy like Pete Carroll that knows how to build an organization. John Spytek, I would love to see, John Spytek, in another draft, like get a chance to really build, because he did it in Tampa Bay. He hit on the guys like Bucky Irving. I want to see that happen with the Raiders, but they collectively need to make a decision. And I'm sure that that's the discussion right now. are we really trying to salvage this season? I mean, of course they're focused on that, or do we trade away some of the few assets we have to be in a position to next year get some draft capital and actually start to build this thing? Because look at the Lions. Dan Campbell came in there. He won 3 games the first year. Everybody points to these coaches that turn things around. We forget he didn't do it the first year. So let's give him some time. Pete Carroll, somebody that's proven. I have faith in Pete Carroll. I think Patrick Graham's a good defensive coordinator. I think John Spytek is going to be a great GM. They just need some time. So that's what's kind of hard. It's like, as Raider Nation, you're going, okay,
right.
If the trade deadline comes and if they trade, Jacoby away, or who do they, Mac, people are going to start to the rumblings. Max is one of their assets. Well, Max has a huge contract,
right.
and it's not easy to trade somebody like that away. And also you got to keep key players when you are trying to rebuild. We saw that movie before, the Cleo Mack movie.
Yes.
It didn't end well.
No.
So I don't think Max Crosby.
That's like a black guy in a horror film. It's not going to end well. That's why I don't watch those movies.
That's why they're not. That's why they're not black people in the start of those horror movies too. You already know the end.
I'm just saying. I didn't have to,
first one to go. Nope.
Sorry.
Yeah, but to be fair, the white people stick in it. And they start investigating, and then they're always the ones that get. I'm like, don't investigate. Just get out. Let's get out. Let's see what's happening. No. Okay. So so that's my take. Is we have a bigger question mark right now. It's not like, how do you fix this team? It's how do you fix the organization? And that's not for us to decide. That's what John Spytek and Pete Carroll and Tom Brady and Mark Davis are doing right now as the trade deadline approaches. It's a bigger question mark.
With all the draft capital the Raiders currently have and going forward, I understand Raider Nation is tired of hearing the words, be patient, be patient. But it's absolutely essential in this case, guys, because if you look at this roster, who can you say are the true guys that help, the architects that help build this roster? We traded all the good players away. We gave away Josh Jacobs. We gave away, other players like that. Other players quit on us. We've had turnover and turmoil in that locker room. And it was a lot of things that I was having a conversation with JT yesterday. If you look at the timeline since Jack Del Rio was let go for John Gruden, look at the timeline of coaches. It's unfortunate circumstances that you cannot really plan out. You can't write a book. No one thought John Gruden was going to be fired over something that didn't happen with the Raiders. No one thought that bringing in, Josh McDaniels is going to really disassociate the coaching staff from the team, because the team quit on him. They called for his head. AP was over his head. You have no way of quantifying that because the players were calling for AP. You see what I'm saying? Now you're going to Pete Carroll. And yes, he's up there in age, and we already know the deals of what he had in other programs. I understand why he was hired. He was hired to build the Raiders in the right way over the next couple of years, however long he has in coaching. I get that. But right now, the Raider Nation wants to win. And right now, they need to be more competitive. If it's time to compete, well, hell, be competitive. They were not competitive. They got shell-shocked. They got embarrassed yesterday in Kansas City. They did not compete. So you got to go back to the drawing board. And look, these are athletes that come from successful programs. A lot of times people sit there and will say, they're not used to losing. You're right, they're not used to losing. Most of these college guys come from college programs that won.
Yeah.
So they're used to winning, and you got to sort of get back in there. But everybody gets paid out there. Everybody gets paid to compete. These guys have got to go out there and do a better job. Everybody, not just offense, but defense, special teams. Everybody's got to do a better job, because right now this team is not very good, and they'll be happy if they might only win 2 games with the rest of the schedule the way they're playing.
Well, the other thing about this is, and to your point about these guys have always won. I mean, even if you see shots of Ashton Jeanty on the sideline, he almost looks like, what in the hell's going on?
Exactly.
That's not something I'm used to, right? I mean, it's one thing when you see a couple carries that he'll have, and they may go for 8 or 10 yards, where in college they would have gone for 25 to maybe even taking it to the house, right? But then you see him on the sideline when they're in the middle of a 31-0 beatdown. He's thinking, I don't lose like this, and that's what I remember. Even going back to Josh Jacobs' rookie year, I remember the Raiders losing the game, and he went into the locker room and was like, "Y'all are happy with this? Y'all are okay with this? Like, we don't lose. I don't know what this is all about." That's why I always respected Josh, because he always held himself to such a higher standard where he never wanted to lose. And guys like Max Crosby don't ever want to lose. These guys hate losing more than they like winning, right? I mean, they have that alpha dog mentality. But the thing about it is, and I think why Raider Nation is so upset, and what has really shocked me as a guy who's around the organization all the time, is that this is not what the plan was that was rolled out there, right? When we asked Pete Carroll what the expectation, we're going to win a lot. That's all I know. We're going to win a lot. I win 10 games every single year. And I thought this is a team that's going to win they'll at least double what they did last year. I didn't think this was a playoff team, but
Right.
I was, okay, they'll get about 8 wins. They'll double where they're at. But that was with me thinking they were going to get to, 3 or 4 wins by the bye week. Now, guys, we're in the bye week, and they're sitting there at 2 wins, and they're just coming off another beatdown. Like, to me, this is not at all how Pete Carroll and company thought this was going to go. I think they're even shocked by the results of this team right now.
Well, I think that the plan was, I think Sam Darnold, and Baker Mayfield kind of ruined it for everybody because they went out there and balled in their second act.
Right.
And people, Geno Smith kind of already balled in his second act with the Seahawks. And this is his third act.
Yeah.
And so the hope was that, okay, we're going to get a Geno Smith that is like is going to have like a Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield kind of resurrection. And the reality is Geno Smith just has not played well. And Jason Horowitz, our buddy, came on the post-game show, Raiders Game Day, yesterday, and was saying, I think this was a game where, it wasn't Geno Smith's fault. And the homie James Jones goes, let me ask you something. What did they have? 95 total yards? Like,
Yeah,
what was the
94.
total? 94.
Yeah,
Okay. So James Jones goes, the offense had 94 total yards. Whose fault was it?
Right.
like
Right.
the quarterback isn't playing good enough. I mean, is it the offensive coordinator's fault? Just because Geno Smith didn't throw an interception doesn't mean it's not his fault that offense didn't move. I mean, there's a lot of people that should be accountable, but the bottom line is this organization is not going to turn around until they have a franchise quarterback, and they just don't have that. And you look at last year, they had 2 wins going into the last 2 games. They win the last two games, and it knocked them out of the top of the draft. And you had to compete. I know you can't lose games to get to the top, but really it was almost unfortunate because I would have liked to see them be at the top of the draft. Now I know it wasn't a quarterback heavy draft, and this year is going to be a little bit better. But they need to figure out how to get a franchise quarterback, because every organization that has turned around, I know the Commanders aren't playing right now, but last year it was Jaden Daniels and it was, Dan Quinn that came in there. It's
Jackson Dart. Look at Jackson Dart.
Jackson Dart it's turned things around. All of a sudden, Dable's job is secure. Wait, am I saying that right? Then look at the Lions, Dan Campbell, and Jared Goff. Like you can't turn it around with just a Pete Carroll. You got to have a good quarterback. And so that's where they are right now. And also I think for the immediate future, Chip Kelly is really going to have to look at himself. We have to remember Chip Kelly has not proven himself in the NFL. He's a winner in college. Okay.
Right.
And sometimes that doesn't translate. And it was clear Chip Kelly came in and wanted to do kind of what works for Chip Kelly. And there's things like, having Geno Smith in shotgun, or, changing Ashton Jeanty's stance. Well, those things aren't working. So look at your personnel. Let's try to do what works for them. Maybe not what the Chip Kelly offense is, because maybe in the pros he needs to adapt a little bit more. And I think we might see that coming out of the bye week.
Well, Amber, that's exactly what I thought. I would jump in here, Q. I think when I talked about imploding the offense, your philosophy is not working. If you came in with 12 personnel and thought you were going to sort of, mimic the offenses like Buffalo and other teams that uses multiple tight ends around the league, it just hasn't worked because of injuries and other misfortunes. Geno Smith is shell-shocked. Okay, he's shell-shocked. He's been hit so many times. There have been so many people around him. The way coming out of shotgun, much to Amber's point, you're exposing your tackles who are struggling with speed. And you only have so many guys that you can put outside to maybe control that speed. But the pocket is collapsing mostly from the outside in. These past 2 games with these defensive tackles, it collapsed from inside out. There's entirely way too much pressure. And Geno's looking at the rush rather than looking downfield. More importantly, everyone's taking away his short and intermediate throws because they know that's all he's going to go to. Geno doesn't want to run the risk of throwing an interception and being in that light again. I understand that, but he's shell-shocked. So you need to rely on the run game. That's all you really have. There's nothing else. If you do not establish a running game, which is a quarterback's best friend, the quarterback is going to be hampered out there because he's not going to be able to throw the ball downfield. And this is not a good screen team. This is not a good draw team. So they don't really have anything that can complement that pass game when these defensive linemen tee back their ears and say, okay, they got to pass. Here we go. And that's exactly what happened. That's what happens when you get down. This team doesn't have the ability to come back and go toe-to-toe with most offenses in the league right now. So totally blow up everything this bye week. Go with a different offense. Put Geno under center. Put a regular traditional tight end and take your other tight end and put him in the backfield as a fullback. And you do a mimic of an I formation. Do a mimic of an I formation and run straight downhill right at these opposing teams that you are facing. What this is going to do is this is going to go to your offensive line. This is going to say, you know what? I'm relying on you to get it done. And that's exactly what these guys in the front need to stand up. I don't care if it's JPJ. I don't care who's out there. These guys need to stand up for themselves and defend themselves, because there's no reason to go from shotgun on the 3-yard line and throw a damn tackle eligible. So that's all I got to say about that.
No, and that's why you guys are pros, because you guys segue me right to the next segment when we're going to talk about the coaching staff. We're going to talk about Geno Smith and what they can do better and how they can evolve this team better and evolve this offense better in particular coming out of the bye week. They've got a whole week to kind of lick their wounds, figure out what's going wrong. We'll talk to Pete Carroll a little bit later on this morning. But yeah, coming up next, we'll talk about the coaching staff. We'll talk about Geno Smith and more. It's the Raiders Squad Show. She's Amber Theo Harris alongside Lincoln Kennedy. I'm Q Myers. We got that coming up next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple of the great sponsors here, including Ripley. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier. But now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS. That's sad. Software as a service. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, the busy work, and silos that your software created. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Again, rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. I also want to tell you about PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is so much fun. Simply a way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections. Like maybe you're looking at Josh Allen's passing yards, or in the Eagle game, you're looking at Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown. Either way you do it, you're in the game. And PrizePicks just added stacks. So if you want to ride with the player, you can select their pass yards, their rush yards, or touchdowns all in one lineup. It's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with just one click. So right now, download the PrizePicks app today. Use promo code LockedOnNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LockedOnNFL. It's all one word for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, Raider Nation, welcome back to the Raider Squad Show alongside Lincoln Kennedy and Amber Theo Harris. I'm Q Myers, Chantel Chan, behind the scenes making everything do what it do on the bye week. And, man, a good time to be on the bye week, coming off a 31-0 beatdown by the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. So we talked in great detail in the first segment just about the game, how it unfolded, what went wrong, where the frustrations are. But when you look at this coaching staff, and Amber, I thought you brought up a great point when you mentioned Chip Kelly. Look, this is the highest paid offensive coordinator in the league. $6 million a year is what he's getting paid. That offense does not look like it's ran by the $6 million man, right? It just looks like, and this is what I was excited about with Chip Kelly coming in, creativity. I thought you were going to see a lot of, unpredictability when it comes to the offense. I thought we were going to see, guys used to their strength as opposed to going to Chip's system. But Amber, so far, it seems like it has been more of, hey, this is what I do, and this is how I've always been successful. So this is what you guys are going to do. And it just hasn't worked out for the Raiders.
Well, we know that doesn't work. We've all covered this league, or Lincoln's played in this league long enough that you have to look at your personnel and say, what do I have? And what did they do well? Especially when you're transitioning from college. I think that works in college. Like, this is what we do here at Ohio State. Mm-hmm. You come in, or Oregon or UCLA, and you do it. And we recruit players that fit into that system because they're only going to be here for 3 years, 4 years, and then they move on. So we have to maintain the system. Whereas in the pros, the players are going to be on that roster, if they're good, for 10 years, 15 years. And so if you have a star player, you have to figure out what works for them. Now, is that the case for Geno Smith? No, I don't think he's going to be there forever, but you at least put him in a position to be comfortable, like put him under center, like Lincoln said. And Lincoln alluded to this. Your plan was to run 12 personnel, right? And kind of be like Buffalo or like the Ravens, have had success with 12 personnel at times. Kansas City Chiefs have done it. But your plan was to have one of the best tight end in the NFL last year out there. He's not out there. So when it's 12 personnel, the 2, for people that don't, the 2 stands for 2 tight ends. When you don't have 2, you're 1 tight end, it is hard to run 12 personnel. And so then you're put in a position where you're getting away from the running game. 12 personnel also works really well when you establish the run. Yeah. And also you have play action pass and like it all stacks up on each other. I just don't get, even if you are still trying to run 12 personnel, if you're not running the football in the first 10, 15 scripted plays, like what was the plan? And I do understand saying, okay, we don't want to be one dimensional. It's almost like you're outthinking yourself. Like Steve Spagnuolo is going to know that we are going to run the football. So we're going to get cute and we're going to do this right out the gate. And it's like, it doesn't matter what you think the other guy's going to do. Put the ball in your best player's hands. Sometimes it's that simple. That's your best shot. So just give it to 2. So
look, I know the Raiders do not have an offensive line, comparable offensive line right now. I get it. Trust me, I get it. But to me, offensive line is all about development during the heat of the fire. You got to put them out there and let them take their licks. There's going to be times where the other guys get paid too, and they're going to beat them. I understand that. But you got to you're going to take some licks. You're going to take some negative plays. The issue that I had with yesterday in Kansas City is that every time they seem to get something positive, there was something on the back end, either a holding or a miscue or something. I mean, hell, we even had a receiver line up in the neutral zone off sides. Right. How often does that happen? You see what I'm saying? It's almost a comedy of errors, like the Keystone Cops out there. But that when it rains, it pours. These young guys are going to have to play. I'm a firm believer right now. You got to throw those young guys out there, let them play, because this roster is changing and it has no true direction right now. And I don't know if Chip Kelly has all the answers. I'm just throwing out suggestions because I've seen the tackles be exposed out of shotgun. So put his ass under center. There are more teams that are going under center these days just for that reason. Those outside linebackers, those edge rushers, they're not stand-up defensive ends. They're not always big and powerful that you can't run against, but they are fast and active when it comes to the passing game. And they are just teeing back their ears and teeing off to get to Geno Smith quickly and get around him and harass him. And we've already seen in this past game that Geno's not prepared to run. Even when he's seen the open, he might be a little reluctant to run. Hey, to each his own. We saw that with Derek Carr. It's no surprise. I get it. You might not want to get hurt. Don't want to take the chance. You want to learn how to slide him before slider. So let me get down in a hurry. But you've got to have more effective play out of your quarterback. You got to have more effective play out of your offense. And then, like I said, coaches coach, players plays. It starts from above and trickles down. Chip needs to put his guys, like Amber said, in a much better situation to be successful than what he's done.
Lincoln, let me go back to that Geno Smith and him not willing to run right now, which to me I think is a huge issue.
Thank you.
I think it's a huge issue. I really, because he has the ability to do it, and it seems like he has not the want to do it. And when you have that ability, I feel like you have to use it. I know he's not a good slider. He demonstrated that the other night at Allegiant Stadium where he slid and basically threw his knee right into the ground, which I don't know what he was doing. But, it's just you have to use that, especially when the offensive line is struggling. You have to be willing to go out there. And that was the big knock on Derek, because Derek, for the longest, he has the athletic ability to run. He just had the unwillingness to run after he broke his ankle in 2016. So when I saw Geno Smith, when Geno got traded for, and Amber, you cover the draft like a glove, so you know that the draft class was not good when it came to the quarterbacks, and there was going to be some reaches, even at the number 1 spot, right? People are saying that Cam Ward at 1 was a reach. Okay, so whatever the case may be, but we knew the quarterback draft class wasn't so deep. So they didn't force the issue. They went and got Geno Smith, who Pete Carroll's had history with. They tried to get Stafford first. Obviously, that didn't work. Then they went to Geno Smith. So they didn't force a quarterback. Well, we have to get somebody, so let's just go get something. I always say it's like when my mom used to take me to the store to go get new shoes, and they didn't have the shoes that I wanted. I got some anyway. Oh, yeah, I like those. Well, you don't have to get them. No, I like those because they were new, right? So I just forced the issue. The Raiders said, we're not going to force the issue. We're going to bring in, Geno Smith, and then we'll kick the can down the road when it comes to bringing in our franchise quarterback. I don't think Cam Miller's that guy, so whatever. That's another conversation. But it's just now it seems like he is as much of a liability to this team as, the Raiders were in the situation before with their quarterback situation, when it was a rotating door, when you had O'Connell, when you had Minshew, when you've had Jimmy G, when you've had Brian Hoyer, when you've had, everyone not named Derek Carr, right? They've had 18 quarterbacks, it feels like, since Derek Carr, since they decided to move on from him. They just don't have the stability at that position, and it felt like this was going to at least stabilize it for now. And even, with him not being willing to run, Amber, I think it's not doing justice to that position.
I mean, that's part of your job. I get it. There are some quarterbacks that are in the pocket type of quarterbacks. They're not going to run a lot. I feel like there's very few of them left in the league, to be honest with you. You have to be mobile in the league. And look at just the quarterbacks that have gone up against the Raiders. Who has had success and how have they had success? Like Caleb Williams in that last drive ran on us. Who was the Commanders quarterback?
Marcus Mariota.
Marcus Mariota ran all over us, actually. Look at the ones that are having success right now. Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones, guys that are coming out of the woodwork. Jackson Dart, we just saw beat the Eagles that way. It is part of the game today. And defenses around the NFL are having trouble defending these players that show that they can run. Now, will Geno Smith ever be like, do what Marcus Mariota did? No. Right. But you have to have better decision making because it's your responsibility to get some positive yards. It's that simple. You don't have to run for a touchdown, but maybe run for 4 yards and then go down. If you see green grass in front of you, run. It's like, Q and I, we love basketball. I coach my kids in basketball. I say, when you turn and you see the hoop clearly, run, drive to the hoop. Drive to the hoop. Like that green grass. I say, I yell green grass is what I yell to my basketball players, meaning you got a free lane, go. So that's part of your job as a quarterback. And you know what? Call up Mookie Betts after, the Dodgers win the World Series or whatever. Have him come train you how to slide into second base. Go out there and try. I don't know. But figure out how to make that a small part of your game. You don't have to be great at it, but you have to be able to do it. And you have to be able to make that decision in a split second to get some positive yards and not take the sack. And that's where I think Geno Smith can improve.
For a long time, I believe that the NFL had evolved to mobile quarterbacks being an absolute essential. Quarterbacks that have been successful, in my opinion, over the last decade have been able to scramble out of the pocket and improvise. We've seen Aaron Rodgers do it. We've seen, we've seen guys like other quarterbacks do it, and of course, Patrick Mahomes is master of improvisation as he gets out of the pocket, flipping the ball. And then now you see that a trend in college. I've seen quarterbacks flipping the ball and going down and trying to toss. So you've got to be mobile. And to look, if Geno Smith says, you know what, I don't want to run the football, I want to get rid of it, then here's the thing. Coaching comes back into a premium to where you've got to find a system to get rid of the football. Can't take a check down when it's 3rd down and 8. It's not going to work. Right. Okay, you got to try to throw the ball downfield. More importantly, you got to put your offensive line in a position, whether it's max protection and you're only sending 2 or 3 guys out. Those 2 or 3 guys have got to get open. They've got to get open, or they've got to be able to stretch the defense enough for protection to hold up enough for to have one of those leaker out, one of those unblocked guys maybe leak out of the backfield and get some extra yards, because this is not working. This system is not working. The pocket is collapsing around him. So now we've got to move the pocket. But you got to seal the end, don't you? So you don't have a free rush in coming off of it. I mean, there's other technicalities that goes with this. This whole thing is that running out of 12 personnel is not conducive to this offense. You need to do something different. And you need to change it and do something different. Take one of those tight ends, line them up as a fullback. It's technically 12 personnel, but it has a different look. And then you can do things differently out of that way. So those are just ideas floating out there. Right now, we go back to the system. Comes from Chip. You got to put a system in play for these players that you have available. Not what you're looking at on the roster on paper, but what's available. Brock Bowers isn't out there. Okay, Michael Mayer or whomever is going to be a big part of this offensive game plan. You got to focus in on number 2 while you have them. And you got to put those offensive linemen to work, really.
And it's hard. It was hard for me to even see what worked or what didn't work for the Raiders offense because they only had a handful of plays, right? I mean, so it's like I look up and I go, well, where was Ashton Jeanty? Well, where was Michael Mayer? Well, where was, insert whatever, whoever you want, Trey Tucker? Where was Dante Thornton? Where was Jack Besh? But then again, where was the offense at all? I mean, 30 plays, you just don't get in any kind of rhythm. I mean, there's running backs that touch the ball more than 30 times in a game, and the Raiders only ran 30 plays. There just seemed to be some kind of disconnect as far as I was concerned with, where this offense was, the whatever identity Chip was trying to establish, it isn't there. And Lincoln, you've mentioned it before, this team, even though it's 7 weeks into the books, still doesn't have a true identity when we all believed it was going to be 12 personnel and a heavy dose of the run game running downhill with Jeanty.
Well, when we looked at this running back room, we saw a full running back room.
Yeah.
And then you think about it. Okay, it's not also so much on Ashton Jeanty running the ball 30, 40 times, though it probably could. You never give him the chance. But again, you got to stay ahead of the chains. This offense struggles on first down. First down production is in a negative to me. Every time I turn to look up, I'm like, oh my gosh, lost 2 yards. So no gain. 2nd and 10. Oh, here we go again. Because they're just inept, and there has been no consistency. Look, they struggled for a first down against Kansas City.
Yeah,
to get a damn first down.
They only had 3 of them.
Else.
Yeah, three of them that they earned and one that they got a penalty. So 4 total.
See, that's exactly my point. If you look at the play production or the amount of plays over the last 3 games, I think it was 58 3 games ago, 52 last one, and then 30 this one. Hello.
Right.
I've never seen anything. I've never seen so inept of an offense. But that's why we got to go back to the drawing board. Right. What was working or what you thought was going to work for the first 7 games didn't get it done. Now we got to go back.
Amber, I got a really good one for you. The Raiders ran 30 offensive plays for the second fewest of any game in the Super Bowl era. The second fewest. The Browns had 28 versus Steelers in their first game as an expansion team in 1999. That's how bad that was.
They set record lows in a bunch of things.
Yes.
That they actually gave the Kansas City Chiefs some records. The Kansas City Chiefs set a record for the most amount of 80-plus yard drives in the first half. Like we could go through all the lows or the highs that they gave the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, there was some pathetic records. I mean,
shut out. Andy Reid,
I think it was the fewest amount of first down since 2008 or something like that. Since Jamarcus Russell was there, there was a bunch of little nuggets like that you just at some point you're just burying the team, and you don't want to do that because we want to figure out how they can move forward. Right, but look, 42 minutes, the Kansas City Chiefs held the ball. That is not competitive in an NFL at all, in the NFL at all. 40, I mean, I've never seen anything like that. I didn't even look up any stats around that, but this is my 27th season in the NFL to date myself. I started in 98 was my first season as an intern. I've never seen 42-minute possession for the other team. And me and Eric Allen, Eric always laughs and brings it up during our show because I will say, I don't even need to watch the game. Show me the turnovers and the time of possession, and I can tell you who won that game. Like 99.5% of the time. And so how do you control the ball? How do you control the clock? You keep the ball in your hands. And how do you do that when you have a quarterback that's not playing well? Well, you give it to your running back. And here's one positive. Of the 4 carries, right, that Ashton Jeanty got in the first half, he carried the ball 4 times. Do you know what his average yard per carry was?
It was over 4 yards.
4.5, something like that.
4.8.
Yeah.
4.8.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually was running the ball successfully, and the very few times that he had it, even when the offense was looking awful. So, I mean, I know we keep harping on this, and I know it's not easy to go, just run the ball,
right.
But it's your best shot right now. It's your best shot till you get Brock Bowers back, and you have some sort of a threat in a passing game. And so to me, it is pretty simple. I know it's not that simple, but if you got no choice, and you got to get better, you got to control the clock, at least try to give it to 2. And just, if you're going down swinging, go down swinging, giving them your best shot.
Such a young team offensively, such a young team when you talk about the possible playmakers. And when I saw Jacoby Myers a scratch from yesterday, I was, a couple things played in my mind, and we don't have to talk about it now. One, the trade rumors. Does this have anything to do with the trade rumors? And I heard it was his knee. Okay. So if he's unhealthy, if that's the case, I mean, we're really thin at another position, really thin at the wide receiver spot. You got a lot of unproven commodities that have to go out there and going to have to take their lumps. The problem is that you have a quarterback who's shell-shocked, an offensive line that's porous, and a receiving core that's kind of hollow, and you're trying to throw the ball downfield and nobody's getting open. There's absolutely no separation on the second level. There's nowhere to go with the football. And so either you get creative. People are going to play a lot of man-zone combinations. That's what we've seen over the last couple of games that have harassed Geno Smith because they've been able to get to the quarterback with just a 4-man or a shallow rush. Don't even have to blitz. So you're really left at what you can do, really left limited to what you can do. That's why, much to Amber's point, and it's absolutely essential, you have to establish the run. And I'm of the mindset, you go out there and I call 3 straight run plays. We don't get a first down. Okay,
Right.
we'll punt it. We'll come back, play defense, call 3 straight running plays again. We're going to figure this out. And we're going to figure this out through a trial by fire. We're going to sit there and try to hit our head against the pole. Oh, if I see a few things opening up, now that we're trying to run the ball and they see they might be stacking, we'll take a shot downfield or something like that. I'll call it directly. I won't necessarily put, a check with me system out there. I'll call it directly. I want you to go to Thornton up top. Or I want you to try Trey Tucker up top with a long pass. Then these receivers have got to beat their men. But right now it's a combination. It's a comedy of errors amongst this offense because nothing's working, nothing's consistent. And you really look, you're gambling. You're flipping a coin. What would you call? Heads run, tails pass. Okay, it's tails. Let's throw this pass. It doesn't work. Oh, no. Okay, let's flip a coin. No, we got to run. It's bad football right now. It really is.
It is. And Lincoln, you mentioned the trade rumors, and we'll talk about that before we wrap up the show for sure, because as Amber said, the trade deadline is November 4th. That is right around the corner. But coming up next, Geno Smith, we saw him get sat down at the end of the game. We saw Kenny Pickett get a couple snaps. We also saw him fumble on the very first time that he had an opportunity. But is it time to make a change at the QB position? And they have the bye week to get him get Kenny Pickett up to speed. We'll talk about that next here on the Raider Squad Show. Before we do that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor that we have here, and that is Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. That's as of August of 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes, they sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same attention to how they craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the Napa leather upholstery. Make everyday drive feel like anything but, from smooth handling to great controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like the players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, Raider Nation, welcome back to the Raider Squad Show alongside Amber Thea Harris and Lincoln Kennedy. I'm Q Myers. If you're enjoying what you're hearing and seeing, if you're checking us out on YouTube, we do appreciate that. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And, we're going to be here to deliver it, good, bad, or ugly. No matter what the Raiders do on the field, we'll be here to talk about the game and break it down. We do it a couple times a week here on the Raider Squad Show. So a lot of folks have been talking about Geno Smith, and he's not it. And right, hasn't proven to be, especially with the league in 10 interceptions that he has. Didn't have an interception on yesterday, but he just wasn't very effective at all. We saw at the end of the game, we saw Kenny Pickett come in. He was 2 for 2, but he did fumble the very first snap that he had. Turnover, of course it was, right? So is there a chance, Lincoln, coming in this bye week, since it is a little bit of extra time off and the coaches can kind of, work with them or work with at least a game plan to kind of get Kenny Pickett up to speed? Do you think this is a time when Pete Carroll and company makes the move to Kenny?
I've been on the fence about this for some time. Part of me wants to see Aiden O'Connell before I see Kenny Pickett. But
agreed.
Is he healthy though?
He's not healthy. He's not available.
So he can be healthy.
Can't put him out there. You know what? Here's the thing. I'm still on the fence because I have a very bad taste in my mouth. The very first snap you get, you fumble the snap.
Yeah.
If there's anything, get the damn ball.
Yeah.
I mean, this is elementary.
Yeah.
Center and quarterback exchange, elementary. If you're not, if we get the call, I'm on the sideline and I go over to Amber, you're up next. All right, get ready. What's the first thing Amber's going to do? She's going to take a ball, fill it around, going to take some snaps, probably throw it around. And of course, you get you with your center. Come on, let's get some snaps. We're going in the center. Let's go. That's elementary. The fact that we're in this day and area and the first snap that you get in the game and the disaster, you fumble and turn over. So I'm not really ready to say that I want him out there yet. I'm really on the fence. I would like to see Aiden O'Connell, but he's not healthy. What the hell? What can hurt right now if you give Kenny Pickett a start?
We lost you. Uh-oh.
Sorry, microphone. Very sensitive mute button. I'm of the same mindset of Lincoln. I've seen this script too many times where it's, all right, this guy isn't doing well. Let's throw the other guy out there. He's going to come and save us. There's a reason he's the number 2.
Right.
Like there's a reason a first round draft pick is no longer with the team that drafted him. Right. They saw, don't you think that the Steelers gave him every opportunity they could? Right. Like, you don't just trade a first round draft pick and say, you know what, we weren't really sure of what we had, so we're just going to they were sure that he wasn't it in order to trade him. Now the same could be said for like a Daniel Jones though. they were sure, the Giants, that he wasn't it. And look, he's it with the Colts. So there's kind of a back and forth of this new like second act quarterback thing is the trendy thing in the NFL. And everybody's like, oh, like maybe Kenny Pickett could be him.
Right.
But I don't think that's going to be the answer because it's not really just the quarterback position right now.
Right.
It's not like he's going to come in with this offensive line with Colton Miller down. I know Colton could come back, but he's not going to come in and be, the Messiah. So I think people need to caution themselves with that. I agree. I think Aiden O'Connell should have started 2 years ago over Gardner Minshew, but that's a moot point at this point. The reality is they got to figure out how to move forward.
That he didn't, right? I think we were all surprised that he didn't start 2 years ago. Not to bring up old stuff, but I think we're all surprised.
You bring up why did Minshew start? Why do you think he started?
Because he thought he was mobile.
That he was in the money. The money. You hit it, right? He was being paid money. Geno Smith's being paid money. That's another reason why if it's 6 or a half dozen, like we're going to keep the guy out there that we're paying the money to. And that's just the way it works. But I do have to say, you have to remember, Pete Carroll, I think is loyal. This is his guy. This is the guy that he brought in, that was his decision. But Pete Carroll's also the guy that years ago benched, what was his name? Matt Flynn, I can't remember the quarterback for Russell Wilson, right? So they had just paid Flynn a nice contract, and that was supposed to be the guy. And the Russell Wilson, his 3rd round draft pick with Seattle, comes in and has a good camp, and he went with him. So don't put it past Pete, to move on and to make a quick decision if he thinks that it's going to be better. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see. And I'm with Lincoln a little bit like, I don't know, throw him out there. Like maybe.
What can hurt? What can hurt? I mean,
I don't know.
Is, you sort of have to change up your offense. Let's keep in mind, Kenny Pickett is a journeyman.
Right.
He's been around for a few teams. And much to Amber's point, and I believe it, coach is coach. There's a certain evaluation that goes with it. He would not be available, especially quarterback. And when you look around the league, if he was that good, he'd be playing for somebody right now.
No, agreed. And on top of that, I mean, to both of your guys' point, if Aiden hadn't got hurt in the last preseason game, he's not on the team anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, the only reason he's even on the team is because Aiden O'Connell is not available right now.
Because they didn't want to get rid of him. Yep.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, that's the whole scenario in that place. I'm just looking at it as and again, I've said it many times, Lincoln, on this show, I've said Kenny Pickett ain't the answer. I just don't know if going into this bye week, and again, we'll talk to Pete Carroll around 11 o'clock this morning Pacific time. I don't know if they say, okay, we've got to do something. Because as you know, and Amber, we talked about it last week on my radio show, if you go into Kansas City and you lose, but it's a close competitive game, okay, that's one thing. If you go in there and win, it's another thing. You're riding a 2-game winning streak into the bye week. But if you get whooped, and they did, the conversation is totally different on Monday. And the way that this whole team is being looked at, everyone's under a microscope. Ownership is looking at Pete Carroll. Ownership is looking at Chip Kelly. Ownership is looking at Patrick Graham. Everyone is being under a microscope even more when you get a 31-0 beatdown like that. That's the reality of it. So I think that there's nothing that's off the table at this stage of the game.
And you're right. I think you're right. But I'm a little leery of using the word coaching evaluation because much to Amber's point, and I believe this wholeheartedly, you can't have another coaching change.
Agreed.
You really can't. You really can't. Every coaching change that we have had has had a change.
You know that, but do they know that?
Well, I mean, there is no foundation that's been laid. Right. The foundation is completely weak when it comes to Raiders organization. The strongest athlete or the most tenured athletes that we have on the team are all hurt now, including Max Crosby. So where's your identity? Where's your where's your sense of feeling and going out there? Who's leading this team right now? Who's taking it under his wing and saying, you know what, put it on my back, I'm going to lead. We don't have that. Right. And that's why you can't have another coaching change. It's going to take some time. You have to deal with what you have right now on this roster, at least for this year, because if you do another coaching change, all it's going to do is really set you back even more than we already are right now.
Agreed.
Also, too, look, go make a play. I don't care that you don't think that your roster is as good as the other roster. You are an NFL player. Yep. Every player needs to look at himself and say, I just got embarrassed as a man. I got embarrassed. As James Jones said, my grandma and them are watching. Mm-hmm. Like, you should have been embarrassed. Right. And you need to, no matter what the coaches do, yes, do the coaches put them in a better position? They can do that. But I don't care that, Forsyth is not the starting left guard. You got to make a play. You can't just go out there and get your butt beat. Step up. Don't get embarrassed again. Right. Collectively, everybody got embarrassed. So I know it's not that easy, but show up. You are an NFL player. Show up. You got to take responsibility at some point.
And look, that's the third beatdown. That's the third embarrassment that's happened this season. It's not the first one, right? And that's what is blowing my mind. I didn't expect to see any of this like this from a team that's led by Pete Carroll. I didn't. And so I go back to during the bye week, everything has to be looked at. Everything has to be re-looked at, right? And okay, how do we get out of this? And we have 10 games left guaranteed. How do we get out of this and come out of the second half more competitive? And that's why I feel like everyone should be there and could be a possibility. All right, well, maybe we make a move here. Maybe we make a move there. Maybe this guy comes in. Maybe whatever. Maybe someone who wants to go make a play, Amber, to your point, maybe that guy gets an opportunity. Hey, I'm right here available. Just call my number, coach. I'm ready. Like, who's that guy? Who's going to step up and say, I'm ready to be what obviously we need on this team, because they need a lot. So that's where it's like, where do you start coming up with the solutions? How do they start coming up with the solution? We know what the problems are. How do they come up with the solutions?
Good question. Go ahead, Amber. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the tough part that is, I think, so upsetting with so many people is the hope that we had, right? And we know, we feel like we had the right, we do have the right. I think Pete Carroll is the right guy. So we feel like we have the right person in place. It just, I don't think anybody anticipated it to look like this. And I looked at Eric Allen in the room and said, are we better than last year? And he said no.
Right.
And I think that's the tough part is you bring in a new regime. We thought at least there's going to be a tick up. And I'm not saying we won't see it. Maybe when it's all said and done, when they have their chance to cook a little, we'll see it at the end of the season. But I think right now that's where it's so difficult for Raider Nation is we're not better than last year. And we kind of feel like we're in the same position. So it's going to be interesting to see the decisions made for the future of the franchise versus the now. And we're going to find that out over the next, 3 weeks.
Another fantastic segue by Amber Thea Harris, Why You're a Pros Pro. We'll actually talk about some of the decisions that can be made, some of the changes that might be made during the bye week. And again, you mentioned it, the trade deadline's coming up November 4th. Can we see a couple moves by the Silver and Black? We'll talk about that next here on the Raider Squad Show. Before I get to that, though, we do want to tell you one more time about our good friends at FanDuel. With the NFL season here, and now it's already best about 7 weeks through the books, FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, all new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel gives you so many different ways to play. You could build parlays, you could try player props, and even follow the live games during the show or during the games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience that much better. So what are you waiting for? Get off your shoulders and go ahead and hit up FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, here we go. We're back on the Raider Squad Show, and we're going to close things out really strong with Amber Thea Harris and Lincoln Kennedy. I'm Q Myers. We're going to talk about the potentials of the trade deadline. We're going to talk about the bye week and what could be happening, what kind of moves could be made, and that's going to be one of the questions I asked Pete Carroll. Does he anticipate some kind of personnel changes? And I'm sure I won't get a really good answer, but I got to ask the question anyway, if he expects any kind of personnel changes made throughout the course of this bye week. But Amber, I want to go to the trade deadline real quick. You mentioned it. Lincoln had mentioned it. November 4th, it comes up. We've already seen plenty of reports about Jacoby Myers being a guy that could be moved. I know that there's teams that will probably call about Max Crosby. I don't think that he's available, but I think that they'll definitely call because why not? Why wouldn't you? But, is there some moves that you maybe anticipate or a move or two that you anticipate could be made sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be in their best interest. Because I'm thinking about the future, right? I don't think that they're not going to make the playoffs this year. So a responsible GM is going to look at how do we get some capital and load up. And Jacoby Myers is going to bring you some. You look at your assets. You start to go down the line. Who do we have that people would actually want? Unfortunately, on the Raiders, it's not a lot, but there's some big. There are some big. Like to me, if I'm a GM from another team, I'm calling about Michael Mayer. I'm calling about him. He's the second tight end on this team. Is he expendable? I would love to have him. I think he's a hell of an asset, especially if I've got a team that I think is going to make a run for it at the end. Everything that he can do, and he can help you on special teams too. Jacoby Myers, as I said, I think it's going to get you some draft capital. I would look at some of the veterans that maybe you could bring over. They're not going to get you draft capital a lot, but they're, maybe you could get something. Like if I'm another GM, I'd call about Devin White. I think he could help me in this run. Max Crosby, of course they're going to get calls. And of course they're going to offer, 3 first rounders. And would that be wonderful? Yes. But like I said, you've got to keep some staple players. And to me, if I'm John Spytek, I go Max Crosby, Ashton Jeanty, Brock Bowers. We're rolling with them. I'm rocking with them. So what do I do with those 3? How do I put those 3 for years to come in the best position? And those are the only 3 that are untouchable.
Let me throw this at you, Lincoln, and I think that you're the right guy for this one. And I'm not suggesting, I want to make sure I make that perfectly clear, I'm not suggesting that this guy gets traded, but given the circumstances of what we've seen so far this year, what do you think the chances of a team calling and asking for JPJ and them making the call?
Definitely. They're definitely going to call for JPJ.
Right?
And I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on in the organization. I don't know what's going on with the coaching staff and JPJ. I know he didn't play well, and that's sort of the reason why he got benched in the Kansas City game.
Yeah.
Look, much to Amber's point, I would like to establish a stable of players that we know are associated with this team. There's been so much turnover. There have been players that have quit on us. There have been players that wanted to move. When it comes to not the free agent wire, the trade wire, the first thing I'm thinking of is, why is this guy available to be traded? Why is he coming up? Why is whomever I'm interested in, why is he available? Is he going to be a nuisance? Is he going to be an aggregate in my locker room? Is he going to come in and always want the ball if he's on offense, or not getting enough snaps if he's on defense? How is that going to play? This is a very young and impressionable team, and if you start trading away the stable players, the Max Crosbys and those things, even if you entertain the idea, you're showing a sign of weakness. And I think in the overall fabric of what you're trying to build team wise, and I think it takes patience. Yes, there are players that the Raiders can probably use. I just don't know at what price they come.
Right.
If they're out there on the trade market, what price they can give up. And if you're going to tell me you're going to hoard draft choices because that's how you're going to build your future, you really don't have a lot of possible things that you can trade away for that. Other than my immediate one is Jacoby Myers.
I want to address this comment real quick. My 2 cents in the chat. Q, it seems like you really dislike and want JPJ gone. That's weird, bro. Not at all. Not at all. I think he's one of the best offensive linemen. Lincoln, I think we've been very adamant about that. He's one of the best offensive linemen they have. But what I can see, and I think, Amber, you can see it as well from the naked eye, there's a disconnect somewhere between JPJ and this coaching staff.
Yeah.
It ain't Q. I don't make the decisions. If I made the decision, he'd be the starting center right now. It's not my call. Coaches coach, players play, podcasters and radio guys do that. Has nothing to do with me, but guys, am I wrong? Is there some disconnect between him and the staff?
Well, yeah, he got benched. I mean, like Lincoln, you're an offensive lineman. Like, if you ask anybody who gives the Raiders the best chance to win on the offensive line, JPJ is at the top of that conversation, but he's not in the game.
Yeah.
Right.
So talk about a disconnect. When you're a guy that gives you one of the best chances to win is not playing, there's something going on that we don't know.
Facts.
And look, yesterday I saw them. I wish they would have done a better job at committing to finding out where number 95 Chris Jones was on the field.
He wrecked the game.
He wrecked the game.
Yep.
Yeah, he really did take it over. And he just didn't take it over JPJ, but he took it over that offensive line.
Everybody.
And
Simmons did the week before.
Exactly. And that's the thing. You go back to that. And look, it's going to come to a time where, just like teams are doing our favorite, the Mr. Condor, number 98, Max Crosby, they're double teaming, triple teaming. That's what you have to do when you have an all-pro player on that defensive line. Slide to him, turn to him, whatever you have to do, commit another running back up in the hole to help block, but you have to secure protection. You cannot allow the player to go off like that. And more importantly, there were so many times the offensive line got on different layers because of just bad communication. There was one time I saw Alex Cappa come in, and him and DJ Glaze were on so different levels. They ran a TE stunt. It was an easy sack for the defense. And you can't have that. I mean, you got to have that communication. So, look, I don't know what's going on with JPJ. I don't. I wish I did. And there's not a reason out there, but I still think he's our best offensive lineman. And aside from Colton Miller, if he's gone, you really have no identity.
Agreed. And that's. But I don't really know what else they can do. And if they're looking, like Amber said, if they're looking for assets to build the future, there could be a team that says, hey, we need, our offensive lineman just went down. We need a guard or a center. Hey, there's a guy that could play both because he has. And he's that. So Again, just throwing it out there, not reporting it, not acting like I want it to happen. I'm just saying at this stage of the game, when you're going into the bye week and the trade deadline's right around the corner, Amber, I don't think anything's really off the table. You mentioned the 3 guys that are untouchable, and JPJ wasn't one of them.
No, absolutely. Nobody's untouchable other than those other 3. But the problem is, how much draft capital, is Lincoln pointed out, are the other people going to get you?
Right.
There's really that balance. Like, what's it worth to trade JPJ? I think he could get you some draft capital. He's not going to get you a 1.
No.
So, like, that's what you need, some 1s. And you don't have to be at the top of the draft to get a good quarterback. You have to scout.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson was at the bottom of the first round. He was the last pick of the first round. Patrick Mahomes was not a top 5 pick. Jackson Dart was what, number
21, I think.
20 something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where Bo Nix was not top 10, was he last 2 years ago?
No, he was like 12 or 13. Yeah, right before the Raiders pick. Yeah.
So you have to have some first round picks, but you don't have to be. Everybody thinks, oh, maybe we should just tank and then we'll have the number 1 pick and that's going to get us whoever, Arch Manning, but he says he might not come out. There's all this stuff going on in the college ranks right now, but you don't have to. You have to scout.
Yeah.
You have to get your guy. I can remember I was with the Ravens, again, dating myself, when Joe Flacco was drafted. And you know who vouched for him? It was Joe Douglas. He went on to become a GM. He was just a scout. He was an area scout at the time. He saw this guy at Delaware, and that changed the whole tenor of the franchise. They went from 2001, when they went to the playoff. I mean, they won the Super Bowl and had those amazing teams, and then they went through a drought, and then entered Joe Flacco and entered John Harbaugh in the same year. Going back to my quarterback coach theory, quarterback coach, if you have those 2, you can change your whole franchise around. But somebody scouted Joe Flacco in 2008. He went on, and nobody was looking at him. Scout, find your guy. John Spytek's team needs to find their guy in the draft next year.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm still of the mindset that this team needs to find an offensive line.
Oh,
Yeah.
1,000%.
If they have to trade their entire damn draft class for an offensive line, please do. I am so tired of seeing a porous offensive line for the Raiders, especially the position that I represent at tackle. It is horrible. You've got to address this issue. It's long overdue. I don't care who you put back there at quarterback, running back. If you don't have an offensive line, you're not worth a damn.
But Lincoln, do you draft? What do you draft, or do you build through free agency? Because do you go like the Chargers and you take, Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt and whoever else is on that? They didn't.
Yes, because that becomes your foundation. That becomes your foundation, Amber. The thing is that they're not good offensive linemen that are waiting in free agency. And even if you sit on the couch and wait for somebody to come available, more likely he's older and it's going to be a high price waiting you more have to spend. Unfortunately, it's been long overdue, and I've tried to figure out a way around it. You're going to have to address it through the draft, and you're going to have to build and keep these players. I don't expect Pete Carroll to be on the team after 3 years. I think he's going to be aged out at that point.
Yeah.
So somebody else is going to come in. It's got to be a hire from within. When, in my opinion, when it does happen, whether Patrick Graham or whoever comes up and takes the head coaching reins, but more importantly, you have to have a foundation established. Right now, this team does not have a foundation, especially at the offensive line established.
Yeah, no, the offensive line's got to be addressed. The quarterback position's got to be addressed. Weapons around them, depth, as we mentioned before, has got to be addressed. And they do have a lot of salary cap space in next offseason, but we're only 7 games into this season, and now they're in the bye week, so they got to come up with some solutions if they can. Amber, fantastic job. Thanks so much for sliding in.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate you. Lincoln Kennedy, always professor. Great job. Chantel will be back with us later this week, that's for sure. I'm Q Myers. Thanks so much for watching the Raider Squad Show. We'll be back later this week. I believe on Thursday. We'll do it again. Thanks so much. We appreciate you being with us.